The Laura Ingraham Show.
But traveling, this is high season for travel. So we travel to whether, for business or some people on spring break. I took a couple of days off to do some R&R because as you know, I've been a little under the weather with my bronchial deal that I seem to get every year. Although I was really spared the worst of it this year. In years past, I've had a cough for like 3 months, the worst, where I lose my voice, etc. But this time it's just been one of those sore throats that, the throats when you go to sleep and it gets worse at night because you have that drip at night and it's raw. By the time you wake up in the morning, forget about it.
Yes, exactly, Laura. I have that all the time.
Oh,
But
no.
you were right though. A few months there, like back like a year ago, you were sick
Oh, no.
constantly for like 2 months.
Sick.
You could not get well.
Could not get well. So I just needed a couple of days. Just a couple of days. And, I have my leg. It's this is like when you get old. I got my leg problem. I'm in one of those shameful boots that I have to wear for I guess it's a hairline fracture. I'll be getting an MRI this week. Do you notice that getting an MRI, it's like finding gold? Trying to schedule an MRI. They're like, oh, we can do it at 10 p.m. 10 p.m.? That's what I guess I could catch some sleep in the MRI machine. Then they say it's an open MRI and you're in a coffin. It's open. What's open about this? Nothing open about this. It's a coffin. But I've done so many MRIs over the year. I kind of enjoy it at this point. I say, can you do away with that? Dong, 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 dong. Then you can put on headphones. You can put on headphones. And it's the worst music. It's like, would you like rock or a easy listening adult? I'm like, okay, I know what you're saying about that. I'm getting old. Easy listening adult. I said, put on the rock and roll, all right? Then you put on the rock and roll. It's not rock and roll. It's like Ed Sheeran. God bless him. Like, when is Ed Sheeran rock and roll? I'm done with the MRIs, but I have to get an MRI. We took a couple of days. The Beaumont, Texas event that I did on Thursday was awesome. Drew, you missed a big one. It was a big event. 1,000 people.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I dragged old Pete, so Drew had to be spared. Could be spared, but no, it was fun. We had a great time. It's at the Texas Energy Museum. We put some pictures on Twitter, I think, and Facebook,
Yes,
a couple,
you
right? And it was 1,000 people. These are good people. I just love Texas. Texas. Every time I go, I'm like, why don't I just move to Texas? I mean, they're very friendly, very patriotic. They had one of those giant American flags. I so wanted a Patton uniform to do the beginning of Patton because they had the big American flag. I'm like, where's George C. Scott when you need him? That was just an awesome event. Loved it. So then I said, Pete, Pete's doing all this work and planning for LifeSet, the future of LifeSet, what we're doing and expanding and so forth. Like, you need to get some R&R. So I called up a good friend of mine in Florida. I said, last minute, can you spare you have an extra apartment? Can you spare an extra apartment? Oh, darling, come right down. Oh, darling. Oh, absolutely. Because she's one of the nicest people ever. She's like my family. So thought I'd get some R&R and stuff. It was lovely. We had a lovely time.
Once we got there.
Yes. But let's just say on the airline, on the travel, okay, we've now gotten to such a low point in etiquette, dress, and just human interaction that I'm not sure we can ever recover from it. I don't see how we ever come back from. We're now doing the reverse evolution. We're now going back to the ape behavior. We've progressed, and now it's backwards. So now we're slouching back over. We got erect. Now we're slouching back over, mostly because of our cell phones. Let me just
cell phones, hygiene, and dining on the plane.
Oh, no.
Laura, you will be happy with United, though, because they barred 2 girls this past weekend for wearing your famous leggings, kind of yoga pants. They wouldn't let them on the plane.
They were right, and we're going to get into that story.
I thought you would be proud of United for that.
Those are people on passes. I'm going to totally defend United on that. They 100%. Did the right thing on that. And
they were representing the airlines.
Yeah, they were getting in the free pass.
And you have a dress code.
Chris gets free passes because his father worked for the airlines. So I know you have to dress a certain way. I think all of us should be under the United rules of having to dress a certain way.
You saw me. I wore a blazer even when I had shorts on.
You wore a blazer. I wore a skirt and top. And people look at you like you work for the airline.
Right.
They treat you like, oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Right. They treat you differently because you actually dress up for the plane. And it's a really good thing. So at any rate, to make a funny story longer. So Pete and I he had to sit in the back of the plane. Don't ask me why I'm not in first class. Don't ask me that. Okay. But we're not in first class. It's fine. It's not that long from South Florida up to Washington. Pete's on 21. And Pete, by the way, this is what conservatives do. Pete saw a man in a wheelchair who was someone who was really disabled. And
he had a real disability.
He had a real disability. And Pete went up to the flight attendant and said, because he overheard that this man couldn't get an aisle seat, which is hard for someone in a wheelchair not to be in an aisle seat. Pete said, I'll give up my aisle seat for him. No one asked, but he just did. I said to Pete, you get a drink out of it or anything? What the airline give you anything for that? No.
Karma.
Karma. Good karma.
In the bank.
Yeah, he got good karma.
Do the right thing.
Yeah,
it's
do
not
the
always
right thing.
The easy thing.
I know. It was great. So that guy gets on. Pete's were you in a window, right? Oh, she gave you a middle
window,
seat.
But no, I was in a middle seat, but then the window opened up, so I just slid over.
You scooched over to the
I got
window.
Further trapped for what was coming.
Okay, so then Pete, you tell and we're texting back and forth because I'm in the bulkhead. I don't like the bulkhead either. I don't like looking at a wall. I feel like I'm in jail.
But you could stretch your leg out a little bit, which was good.
Oh, my boot. My boot is now I'm going to wear my boot all the time because it's just
I get in my
comfort.
seat. And the spacing, because now I'm in like 3 rows from the lavatory, which plays into this as well. And it's tiny. And I get a text from Laura, and she's showing me literally this gentleman next to her.
No, will you talk about your thing? Don't tell my
and
story.
So then I respond back and I said, I would trade you in a second because I have a gentleman in front of me who clearly had some stomach issues. And it was a little gassy, one might say.
Yeah,
there's a foul odor coming back.
It's a good thing you can't bring lighters on the plane anymore.
We'd have gone
up.
So literally by the end of the flight, now at this point, this has been going on for 2 hours, and I could not believe what I was going through. And as I'm getting out of the plane, I look through the seat, and not only has he
soiled himself.
I think he soiled himself because there's no way if you can sustain that for 2 hours, you get a medal of some weird kind. I think he soiled himself, and I look over, and he's not an old. I mean, he's 57, poor hygiene, cap back. I mean, just terrible.
It's just gross.
And I look over, and he has his shoes off.
Oh!
And someone looks at him. And looks at the shoes, and he said, well, my feet swell when I fly. I said, my goodness, I think everything swells when you fly.
Swell when you fly? Well, just unloosen your laces.
So we had the odorous intestinal issues, the bad feet funk. It was just a nightmare.
Her personal pet peeve?
Socks stay on.
Except they don't. Sure, it's funny when John Candy does it in a movie.
Oh, my dogs are barking today.
But who wants to let barking dogs lie when they intrude from another row?
That is absolutely right. Feet, here's what I want to say to you.
And
it's not about your comfort when you fly. You have people sitting next to you. This isn't your bedroom. This isn't your, Pete, bathroom. You are not to clip your nails on a plane.
Oh, that's the worst.
You are not to. I see that all the time. Filing nails, clipping nails. They're leaving behind all sorts of DNA that I don't want to. I don't want to be privy to. Then up in the bulkhead, I'm on the aisle. A man, God bless him, who is maybe 5'9", 300.
He's 70.
He's 300 at least. Okay, 300 pounds. God bless him. And those narrow things. Thank God they're immovable armrests in bulkhead.
Is he in the middle?
He's in the middle. And he said really loudly, maybe someone will let me move to the aisle, really loudly. And I looked at him and I pointed down at my boot. I said, I'm not moving to the aisle. Right. God bless you, but I need to get up to move my foot. My foot swells. By the way, do you think this foot brace came off my foot the whole time? Never once loosened it. It stayed on my foot. So I was like, God bless. So I slap my headphones on. I'm like in the Accidental Tourist, William Hurt. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
God bless. I don't want to talk to anybody. I have work to do. I got stories to write. I got stories to edit. I got a book to write. So I'm working mode. Working. Then I smell something, and I'm trying to avert my gaze to 4 inches to the right.
I can relate to that.
And I look over. He has a double Whopper with cheese. A double Whopper with cheese. And I'm not kidding you. He keeps the wrapper on it, and it's like next time just slap a feeding bag on.
Right.
Slap a feeding bag on and save yourself the exercise of lifting it to your face.
Right.
He buried his face in that Whopper. That thing was gone in about 4 seconds. I'm not kidding you. And it was the juice coming.
Yeah, the sauce, the juice.
By the way, no napkins to be found.
Right.
None. But
Right.
it was a quite something. Then after the smell and we get up in the air and the flight attendant says, there's no room on this plane. Right. Would you like a drink? I said, no, I don't want it. I never take the drinks. I don't want the drinks. Occasionally I'll take a water, but I don't want anything. I'll have a full can of Coke. Of course he's going to have a Coke, like 40 grams of sugar.
Right.
I'll have a full Coke. Okay. He's managing on this teeny tiny little tray that's the size of a playing card. He's managing an Apple iPad where he's doing something. He manages a full can of Coke, and he has his headphones, and he has his the wrappers from all his food stuffs that he ate, and all of a sudden, boom, the whole thing spills over. The Coke goes everywhere, and thank the Lord, he's right-handed. He was gesticulating, talking to his wife who's across the aisle, knocks the can of Coke everywhere into his iPad, and the very skinny man to his right, who's very handsome, not older, but he's probably 60 years old, handsome, thin, onto his leg. He's very well dressed too. He has like a silver belt buckle. Yeah, he was. And this man goes like, oh, and I felt sorry. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I said, why don't you give me your can of Coke, what's left in it? Let me hold on to that for you. He said, oh, thanks. He gets up really loudly, walks through first class. We have a beverage emergency. Really loud in the first class. We have a beverage emergency. The flight attendant looks at him. She says, is the beverage on fire? What do you mean? She was really funny. She said, is the beverage on fire? He said, it's gone everywhere. And she's like, oh, let me guess.
Of course
she says, let me guess. It's a Coke because it's the stickiest stuff. So the poor skinny guy gets up and he looks at me and it's like, no, he has to basically, straddle me to get out of the seat because it's that tight on the bulkhead. He looks at me. He's like locking eyes with me. He says, nothing like flying 2.5 hours with sticky socks because about a quarter of that can of Coke went into my loafer. I said, better you than I, my friend. Oh, no. This was, and then of course I actually, Pete, who did we see coming onto the plane? A couple with 2 beautiful children.
And you commented, oh my gosh, look at
I'm
this
such
beautiful
a baby
little
person.
baby. Doesn't it make you want to have another one?
Oh,
and I just kind of nodded politely in my head. I'm like, absolutely
this
not.
Little baby,
and
guys,
give
James,
it 40 minutes.
Okay,
give it 40 minutes.
This baby boy had one of those big melon heads, huge head.
It's like Charlie
blue
Brown
eyes.
head.
He was so cute and laughing and looking at me, and I'm playing games with him. And then they have a little girl who was like 3 years old. And I said, I wish Maria was 3. I'm going back memory lane, talking.
Forward.
They're right behind me. Kicked through stuff, Cheerios coming at me the whole flight. But I actually kind of enjoy that. I honestly don't mind the kids screaming.
Doesn't make them any less cute?
No, actually, I said I would take him. I would take the baby for the whole flight because this little boy.
He was adorable.
He was so cute, but it was a bit of a symphony of screaming for the entire flight.
Did they have 2 seats or 3?
They had 3 seats.
Okay,
The baby.
Don't you like when they have 4 and 2?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Each parent
they have
holding
4
a child?
kids, and then there's another kid across the aisle screaming. But I don't mind the kids because I've been there with the kids and they were adorable. Oh my gosh. I was like, I want more. If I were 10 years younger, I'd have 10 babies. They're the best. Love kids. But can you weigh in? We'll talk about Devin Nunes and the bringing smelly food onto planes.
And
forget the leggings. I've already given up on the leggings and the shorts and the tank tops with the big hairy underarm sticking out.
How about the gentleman we saw when we landed in Florida with the big uncut shirt and the coveralls and the underarm hairs? Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Grandpa?
He looked like Santa Claus. We're way over. But he looked like Santa Claus. I was going to go up to him and say, you left nothing for me this year, Santa Claus. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. The worst plane behavior you have encountered this year? And this is only a couple months into the year. 855-40-LAURA. Devin Nunes, the latest to be demonized. Don't go away.
Laura, I went on a trip last year with my daughter to Italy.
Yeah.
Lovely trip. And as I got into my seat, put all my stuff, got settled, I feel like something was under my seat. I realized a very tall man behind me thought it was no problem to put his feet completely underneath my chair, and his feet were literally under my feet.
Oh, so they were touching your feet. Oh, no, that's disgusting.
Yes. Oh, my God, it was gross.
I don't even like touching.
When I turned around.
Yeah, what happened? Quickly.
Oh, well, I just said to him, please, sir, you're in my space. And he thought I was outrageous, that because he's tall, he deserves his space.
Yeah, it's called Go to First Class. That's what it's called. I appreciate it. 855-40-LAURA. We'll share these funny stories throughout the show. That makes us feel better to share the pain. Coming up, Governor Mike Huckabee, the demonization of Devin Nunes. Don't go away. We're going to be collecting the best travel horror stories. And keep your anecdotes to your fellow passengers' behavior on flights. And we're talking, well, I just tweeted something out, which you have to look at. Drew, you have to look at the tweet I just sent, which is a montage of photos that shame other fellow passengers. Oh, no, it's some scary behavior on planes these days. Just the way people dress, the way they eat, the way they – how about makeout sessions on planes? You ever been sitting next to someone and the other people are making out? Oh, no, it's like, get a room, my friends. This is just – honestly, this is not your – I don't know. I got to keep my comments clean here, but it is just gross. But we'll share those stories because a lot of people are getting ready for summer travel. You're planning maybe if you're fortunate enough to be traveling somewhere this summer. And we all just need to do better, behave better, dress better, speak better, be kind to the flight attendants. And it's amazing when you dress well on a plane, people treat you better. They really do. And a smile, a thank you goes a long way. So we can all do better, including yours truly. Joining us now, one of my absolute favorite people, love him, who was understanding the pull and the appeal of populist conservatism long before, frankly, Donald Trump or many others on the political scene. Governor Mike Huckabee from the great state, of course, originally from Arkansas, where he served as governor, and we just love him. Governor Huckabee, great to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Laura, and I paid a dear price for that populist view that I held for many years. And by the way, I saw you on Fox and Friends this morning. You were terrific as always, and what a pleasure to be back with you today.
Oh, it's fantastic, and we have so much ground to cover, including the predictable demonization of the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee, Devin Nunes. Give us your take on what clearly is a coordinated hit on Nunes from the left-wing media, former Obama administration officials, and, of course, Adam Schiff and the Democrats.
The sad thing is that there's so much more concern about where Devin Nunes went to get information than there is about the information that he obtained. There's been little concern from the Democrats that somebody inside the U.S. government illegally, let's not just go say unethically, it was certainly that, but illegally leaked information that very well may have been illegally obtained in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment against U.S. citizens. Not only did they get the information, but then they leaked it out, which by disclosure was a felony. Why aren't people worried about that? Look, if it can happen to the chairman of the House Intel Committee, if it can happen to the president-elect and ultimately the president and the people around him, do we not believe that the government, our government that we pay for, could not be snooping on us, using the information, storing it so that at some point we became a threat to their institutions, that they would not release it in order to destroy and smear us? I mean, this is, to me, one of the most direct threats to our great republic that we've ever seen in my lifetime.
And you remember, imagine if this were done to President Obama. And they would be, Maxine Waters would be calling for the impeachment of whoever did this. Or the prosecution. Instead, she's railing on about Trump's impeachment.
Well, of course, Maxine Waters is more entertaining than she is threatening. Anybody who doesn't know the difference between Crimea and North Korea is hardly a credible.
They both end in an A, Governor Huckabee.
They rhyme.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I really hope that she becomes the chairman of the DNC someday, or maybe the minority leader for the House, because she is God's gift to the Republicans. But in the meantime, we do have a very serious threat, and that is that people inside the government are doing everything they can to try to destroy any effectiveness of Donald Trump's presidency. And this is alarming. It's alarming not because it's about Donald Trump. It's alarming because the one thing that we have to have is a government that has stability outside of the political process. Politicians come and go. Members of Congress come and go. Presidents come and go. The entrenched government bureaucracy has got to have at least a semblance of rising above the politics of the day. And bureaucrats, many of whom are great people. I think it's unfair to say all bureaucrats are evil people. The good ones understand their job is like that of a mechanic. You bring the car in, doesn't matter if it's a Ford or Chevrolet, they can work on it. If you want to raise taxes, they can help you do it. If you want to cut taxes, they can help you do it. But when the bureaucrats start wanting to design the cars, not work on them, now you've got a problem. And I guess I can put it this way, Laura, Houston, we've got a problem.
Oh, big time. And the leaks out of the administration and from various quarters in the administration started coming out early on. I mean, I saw this in early January. People were leaking information, and anytime you see the war of leaks coming out, you know that's not going to be a good dynamic, and every administration leaks. But boy, this started immediately, and it seemed very planned and, again, coordinated, and it will continue to be. This was a comment made this morning on the Today Show by Lindsey Graham about Devin Nunes.
The suspicion, as you well know, is that this information that supposedly vindicates President Trump came from the Trump administration. Do you think it's fishy that he went over to the White House to get it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bizarre. The problem that he's created is he's gone off on a lark by himself, sort of an Inspector Clouseau investigation here, trying to find some unmasking information about collection incidental with the Trump campaign and some foreign agent outside of Russia.
You can always count on Lindsey Graham, can't you, Governor Huckabee?
Well, I'm very disappointed in Lindsey. I sometimes wonder what uniform he puts on each morning when he goes out to the field to play. And I'm not just talking about the partisan uniform, but I think to bring that kind of criticism and to call the chairman of the House Intel Committee, who is a person of integrity, to call him an Inspector Clouseau, to use those kind of terms basically to diminish him, it's very unfortunate. It's demeaning. And frankly, it makes no sense, because he ought to be calling Devin Nunes and saying, Congressman, what do you have? Tell me what you know that you can tell me about, because we need to find out if there's something going on here that is nefarious. And frankly, I think we all know, at least most of us do, that something is rotten in Denmark. And I don't understand why there's not a greater outrage over the leaking of information out of the highest levels of U.S. intelligence. This is of grave concern, because if people who are supposed to be guarding our secrets are letting them go, Laura, I hate to use this word, but I don't know what else to use. Mm-hmm. Is that not treason? Is that not treason? When you work against your own government, you may not agree with your government, you may not like the people who have been elected to be above you, but there are two things that a person in government has to be able to provide: loyalty, confidentiality. And if you violate either one of those, you shouldn't be there. You should be fired.
We're talking to Governor Mike Huckabee here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Governor Huckabee, there is a trade war brewing inside the White House between rival camps. Donald Trump campaigned on bringing a fairer approach to U.S. trade from the way we deal with China. President Xi, of course, is coming this weekend, and he's going to spend time down in Mar-a-Lago with the president. But the way we deal with China and the WTO to NAFTA, and the way Mexico has pulled one over on us, even the Korean free trade deal has seen mounting trade deficits working against us year after year. What should President Trump think about as you have Gary Cohn from of course, Goldman Sachs, who's a smart guy, but is definitely not where Trump was during the campaign. And it looks like Cohn's gotten a lot more power inside the West Wing. And meanwhile, you have Bannon and Stephen Miller and the U.S. Trade Representative, who's still not gotten confirmed. Bob Lighthizer, who's phenomenal on trade. What should Trump be doing here on the trade issue?
I hope he listens to the people who brought him to the dance, because those are the people who represent the millions of Donald Trump supporters, not only the record number in the Republican primary, but also the ones from those traditionally Democrat blue states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, who elected Donald Trump. The fact is they didn't elect him to go and succumb to the Wall Street Journal school of trade, which is just open the borders, let the rich people get rich and the workers get stepped on. He got elected by the people who knew that we were getting screwed, and he was elected to change it and fix it because that's what he promised. If he were to go back on that and become just another part of the long series of presidents, both Democrat and Republican, who have sold out the American worker, then Donald Trump will have a disastrous presidency.
What will happen in places like Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, where he won, contrary to what all these people were predicting? And I think most of his residents came from that economic nationalist vision on trade, immigration, and so on.
Laura, it will be disastrous politically, but the greater problem that I see is that it's going to be disastrous for the workers, for the very people who already have been kicked in the gut by U.S. policies. What I'm hoping is that guys like Steve Bannon have a greater role in influence, and that it doesn't get turned over to the corporatist and the globalist, as has every other White House and Congress, because of the money that they pour into the campaigns. Let's be very realistic that just the election of Donald Trump, prior to his swearing in and in those first weeks after, changed the very dynamics of the U.S. economy. The stock market exploded in growth. Foreign governments were coming to the president saying, hey, maybe we need to rethink these trade deals, seeing the handwriting on the wall. And major U.S. corporations, from car makers to technology companies, sat at the White House and says, yeah, we're going to forego sending those jobs overseas. We're going to keep them here in America. All of that happened without a shot being fired. This is a president who is winning just on the message. He can't abandon the message. He needs to now implement that message into policy. And we're going to see America truly great again. If we don't do that, then I feel like the consequences are disastrous. But forget the politics of it. My concern is that the consequences are disastrous for people who have lost their pensions and their paychecks, and their families can barely pay the rent on the small home.
Check this out again, the LA Times piece today. Gary Cohn, again, erstwhile Goldman Sachs executive, very, very wealthy, very successful. He's been a big advocate, strong advocate for the U.S.-China investment treaty, he said. And then he has a big office on the second floor of the West Wing stacked with like-minded veterans of investment banking and noted internationalists such as Kenneth Juster, former partner at Warburg Pincus, and Andrew Quinn. Check this out, Governor. Andrew Quinn is a top negotiator of the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Obama orchestrated. That's who's in the West Wing right now. That's crazy.
Well, it's not the kind of team that Donald Trump needs around him if he's going to truly drain the swamp. You can't drain the swamp and import alligators. And that's one of the concerns I think that many of us have. I totally believe this president is sincere and genuine in wanting to change things and make them different. And he understands it. People, I think, underestimate how truly shrewd and smart he is. But I've always said from day one, even prior to his swearing in, the greatest fear I had for him is that he would be captured by the Palace Guard, that he would end up going native out of a sense of being held hostage within the bubble of Washington. I do think him going out and doing the rallies is an important way to stay in touch, but he has to have people around him that he trusts, but people like Bannon, people who helped him get there, that truly will remind him every single day that he is not a part of the D.C. crowd. He never will be, and frankly, he should never want to be.
Absolutely.
He should hope that they every day can't stand him, because the day they start loving and embracing him is the day that Americans start to lose.
Absolutely. Governor Mike Huckabee, words of advice and a warning. the administration, you have to stick with the people who brought you here to victory. These ideas of globalization and this so-called free trade that has been killing our middle class, we've tried it for 20 plus years, and it failed the middle class miserably. Governor, thank you, as always. Phenomenal appearance here on the Laura Ingraham Show. We'll close out this hour coming up. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. I'll be on Hannity tonight, so make sure to tune in. And my Fox and Friends appearance is on Facebook and lauraingraham.com. I've played soundbite after soundbite from him saying, well, these people there are families, there are citizens, they're vibrant and productive members of the community, and we're not going to be bullied by the Trump administration into turning into some type of immigration police state.
NYPD has spent decades building a relationship with communities, including immigrant communities. This is the kind of thing that will destroy that progress and make it impossible for the police to keep cities safe. Why? New York City has 500,000 undocumented people. We want them to come forward and work with the police if they see a crime, if they're a victim of a crime. If they believe by talking to a police officer they will get deported and be torn apart from their family, they're not going to work with police.
You're listening to your healthy radio addiction, 855-40-LAURA. 300 sanctuary cities block deportation of 17,000 illegal alien criminals. And counting, by the way. It's more than 17,000 now. And as we've reported over the last few days, many of these criminals are violent. These aren't just people who are jaywalking, okay? These are violent criminals released back into the community to commit more crimes, and in some cases, heinous, violent crimes. The father of the illegal immigrant rapist in Maryland has now been arrested. We'll bring you that story. That just broke last night. He's now in custody, ICE custody. And again, these people are brought into the country. They're brought into the country and then placed with sponsors who are often themselves illegal immigrants. With this desire to reunite with their families. So we're not reuniting people back with their in their homelands, with their families back in their home countries. Apparently, it's your duty as an American citizen to reunite illegal immigrant families in the United States. That's what the left wants. So we're just engaged in family reunification of illegal immigrants in our cities.
To be clear about what Chicago is, it always will be a sanctuary city. To all those who are very nervous, there's filled with anxiety has been spoken to. You are safe in Chicago. You are secure
the people aren't,
in Chicago, and you are supported in Chicago.
You are supported in Chicago. Only people who aren't being supported in Chicago are native-born citizens. Violent crime continues to rise, the murder rate, unacceptable. And we already have the challenges in the public schools that we've talked about. So now we want to make school life more difficult for the working poor and the middle class by laying out the welcome mat. I got to tell you, the people of Chicago, you deserve what you vote for. If you vote for Rahm Emanuel, this is what you're going to get. And I bet this is where Trump can make huge headway. Donald Trump needs to go into Chicago, into the black community in Chicago, and he needs to talk about these issues. Because they're up against the wall as it is, with the gang violence that already exists in Chicago, with the drug and other violent crime problem in Chicago. They're all full up on problems. They don't need any more problems in Chicago. But Rahm Emanuel wants to import more problems. He wants more competition for the entry-level jobs, for construction jobs, more competition. So the young African-American males now have to compete with illegal immigrants from across the globe in Chicago for these jobs. And a lot of these guys, they only go to high school. Maybe they'll go to a trade school if they're lucky. And it used to be you could make a decent living in the construction industry as a laborer. But now the construction crews pick up day laborers, and they make more profit on their jobs. And the native-born people are out of luck. There's no going into the construction industry as a laborer if you're an American citizen these days. Because if you're there and you don't speak Spanish, forget about it. You're not going to know what to do. And install that cabinet, and they speak in Spanish. 855-40-LAURA. It is infuriating. The father of the 18-year-old Rockville High School student charged with rape of a fellow classmate has been arrested for being in the country illegally. This is just... Hasn't he suffered enough? Hasn't he suffered enough? Adolfo Sanchez Reyes was arrested last Friday after a review of his immigration history revealed he was unlawfully present in the United States. Sanchez Reyes has been issued a notice to appear in immigration court. A notice to appear? Get him in a van and expedite his deportation and get him out of the country. What is this? I think this entire apparatus has to be changed. They're by definition, these people are flight risks, are they not? Isn't every illegal immigrant in the United States, by definition, a flight risk? I'll give them a notice to appear. Oh, you can appear whenever you feel like it. 90% of them never show up for their immigration hearings, and they just go back to work. No big deal. They're never deported. Oh, they're dreamers. Oh, so was the rapist. He was a dreamer right before he raped a woman, young girl. Sanchez Reyes is the father of Henry Sanchez Milian, one of the two teenage students charged with first-degree rape and first-degree sexual assault. He was stopped at the border, detained by ISIS, said Andrew Jezik, the 18-year-old's attorney. He was detained for 12 days, but then ICE made the discretionary decision to simply let him go. You know who should be blamed for what unfolded here? Well, of course, the young thug is primarily to blame. But if we didn't have a government that was waving these people in, then we wouldn't have a 14-year-old thrown into a bathroom stall and repeatedly raped by two teenagers. The Immigration Customs Enforcement failed this young woman, and I believe he came into the country. Did he come into the country? Do we know exactly when he came into the country? Was it during the Obama administration? It was for sure. Well, Barack Obama, Jay Johnson, whoever was the ICE boss here, the Homeland Security Secretary, and President Obama worked together to shore up our borders. Weren't they supposed to be enforcing our borders? But they made the decision to flood the zone. Now, you know how flood the zone? We'll talk about basketball and flood the zone. The whole zone is the United States. They flooded the zone with illegal immigrants, releasing them on a discretionary basis. Released an 18-year-old to be in class with 14-year-olds, then raped them. Do you think that's too harsh? The government is failing the people when the government does not enforce immigration law. The L.A. mayor vows to fight the Trump administration sanctuary city funding edict. Mayor Eric Garcetti said Monday he'll fight efforts to take away federal funding. Well, how many of you, raise your hand if you think the federal court's going to uphold whatever Donald Trump tries to do? If they're going to file in Ninth Circuit, they're going to file again in California. They'll find a liberal federal court judge to try to put they'll put a preliminary injunction in place against the Trump administration. They better have good lawyers. They better have a great legal team over there at Justice Department. Their Solicitor General better be the best of the best. I believe it's Noel Francisco. He better be the best of the best. Because if you don't have the best of the best up there at the Solicitor General's office, you guys are going to get steamrolled across this country. They are fighting a multi-front war against the Trump administration. And the war at the border, which we've been losing because we wanted to lose it, now we have a new sheriff in town. Got Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump. I'd cut off all money to these cities, and I would say, guess what? You want to play this game? You could endanger your own citizens. You're not going to benefit from getting the taxpayers' money to do it. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to all your calls on this, a lot more. And one woman who was helping an illegal immigrant cross the border was found kidnapped. Unbelievable. That's another story that just broke a couple days ago. And the stories just keep coming. And remember, our great friends who are supporting what Trump is trying to do on immigration. I need you to go to immigrationpause.org. Do it right now. Tell 10 friends to do it as well. Go to immigrationpause, PAUSE.org. Help us support what the Trump administration is trying to do to limit the influx of dangerous people into this country. Immigrationpause.org. I want you to go there. And you can Facebook it, put it on your social media. Other people will follow. It's awesome, okay? So we need to band together. Immigrationpause.org. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Coming up, Byron York, the latest. The demonization of Devin Nunes. A lot more coming up. The first to show up at the scene of one of these crimes, it's doubly painful. I mean, in some cases, they say they've never seen crime like this. They've never seen crime scenes like this. You're listening to your healthy radio addiction. 855-40-LAURA. Dan in Iowa on line 2. These mayors who are making it easier for criminals to be released back into our country who should never have been here in the first place. Dan, go ahead.
I think it's time to charge these mayors with federal crimes. They're doing things that are illegal. They're doing things against federal law. If I did something against federal law, I'd be charged. Why do they get off?
Well, the rules don't apply to them, they think. They think they're engaging in this noble resistance. They're resisting the enforcement of U.S. law. And yet they're aiding and abetting. And I think you could say, by extension, they are aiding and abetting wanton and rampant criminality in their cities. And whoever is running against these guys has to say it. When you challenge them and they're up for re-election, the citizens, I mean, I'd go to the citizens, is this what you want? You want this? You don't have enough crime in Chicago? You want more? You want Florencia 13, Latin Kings? You want all these gangs here? MS-13, you think they're sweet and just selling cookies door to door? It's obscene. Let's go to Jim, Missouri. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Laura. I wanted to repeat exactly what your previous caller said. The mayors and the activist judges, from my perspective, are clearly guilty of a long list of felonies, including sedition, conspiracy, collusion, treason, insurrection. I mean, that's just a starter.
Can you imagine 150 years ago? This idea that cities and towns are just going to declare, no, there's a whole set of laws we're just not going to. I mean, is this ridiculous? How do you have to go back that far? This would be something that Democrats and Republicans used to agree on, that laws are laws. Richard in Montana on line 6, God's country. Richard, I want to live in Montana. I love that state. Go ahead.
It's a beautiful place to live, Laura. Good job by both of the gentlemen before me. I just wanted to cover something with you. I'm a retired Border Patrol agent, and the Immigration and Nationality Act, the INA, refers to these people as illegal aliens. They have no immigrant status whatsoever. They EWE'd into the United States, entered without inspection, and they've been living here that way since they entered. And it just drives me crazy to hear this illegal immigrant thing. I had to bring that up because it makes me.
Well, I don't blame you. You know, there are a lot of universities that won't use the word alien anymore, and there's a big push to remove the word alien from the federal code. It's all over the federal code. The word alien. It means something. They're not citizens, and you're right. They're not immigrants. How about when they just refer to them as immigrants in titles of newspaper articles? Questions regarding immigrant crime. No, illegal alien crime. I completely agree with you. Great point. Shelley in Florida. Go ahead, Shell.
Yeah, Laura, it kind of blows my mind this is even an issue. Sanctuary cities have become an issue of illegal immigration, but take this further to where do you draw the line? If it's really about cities that are allowing themselves to decide that they can evade the law and ignore the law. So if they decided theoretically they wanted to harbor child molesters or pedophilia acts or murders, then if this went to the Supreme Court, they could actually use the sanctuary city as a...
Oh, I agree. I get your point. It'll set a lovely standard moving forward. Byron York coming up. Don't go away. You had to have united all the different legs of the Republican stool, all the things that they said. Turns out all of them were, well, most of them were off base. But where are we now with all of this? Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, my old dear friend, Byron York from the Washington Examiner, who wrote a great piece that I tweeted out yesterday, the day before, 14 lessons from the GOP's Obamacare debacle, and he joins us now. Byron, great to talk to you. How are you?
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having me.
I have a question. Why 14? Why not 12? Why not 11?
Because I thought 13 just wasn't enough, and 15 was too many.
I
stopped there. As far as I could get that.
That's the first thing I was like, okay, why did he pick 14? I got to talk to him about that. That's the thing I focus on. The recriminations continue. First, Donald Trump came out and blamed the Democrats. That was interesting, as none of the Democrats supported it. That was a little interesting because I don't think the Democrats ever would have supported a repeal of Obamacare. But nevertheless, he then tweeted out that the Democrats and Planned Parenthood must be happy given what the Freedom Caucus had done. Is the blame for all of this on the Freedom Caucus?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, first of all, this blame is kind of healthy given the gravity of what happened. I mean, you don't have something as big as what happened on Friday, and then Monday morning everybody's just kind of happy and ready to go again. This is something very big. It's left a lot of people on Capitol Hill actually stunned. My sense is you have blame for the president, who thought you could move something this big, a legislative project this big, through Congress that quickly without months of work by the White House. You have blame for the Republican leadership, Paul Ryan and the rest of the Republican leadership, that thought they could kind of push this thing through Congress that fast. I mean, remember what was it, the Energy and Commerce Committee had a 18-hour hearing, just went all night, and the other committee, the Budget Committee, Ways and Means, went 24 plus hours. Why are they doing that? That seemed weird. And then you do have blame for the Freedom Caucus, who were hard to get to yes. A lot of them couldn't get to yes. So I just think that there was blame all around, and the biggest blame is just for Republicans in general, who had 7 years to prepare for this, and then found themselves throwing something together at the last minute. So blame all around.
I think that what I took away from this is you have to deal with the party as it is. I think one of the things that Trump was so brilliant at was seeing the country as it is, not as we all wish it would be, but the state of the current country, the economy, foreign policy, the state of mind of so many of the voters who believe they were left behind. And the state of the Republican Party, it's not a libertarian party. I mean, there are some libertarians that are in the Freedom Caucus, and they want to strip down the entitlements, and they want a full repeal of Obamacare, and so do I, by the way. But Trump is he's not a libertarian. He's not someone who is going to go along with that, because that's not the people who voted for him overwhelmingly are not libertarians. And they like some of their entitlements, don't they, Byron?
Well, the president actually promised to not cut entitlements. I mean, he said, "I'm not going to touch your Social Security," over and over in the campaign. And actually, there was a pretty good article on 538 I saw today. Trump doesn't have a mandate for Paul Ryan's agenda.
Bingo.
Which is just true. I mean, Ryan ran as vice president in 2012, didn't get elected. Trump ran a very, very different campaign, 2016, did get elected. And I think what you were hinting at is a bigger issue that could be a problem, which is the congressional Republicans and Trump do not have exactly the same agenda. My sense is, having watched that campaign all the way through, the biggest single factor that got Trump elected, there were a lot of factors, but the biggest single factor was people thought he was going to make the economy better, that he would pay attention to jobs and higher paying jobs, bring jobs back make jobs pay more. I think that's the single biggest thing for Trump. And if you look at what he's done, some of probably the most popular thing he's done was before he was even president was the carrier deal. And the things that he has done that are focused on jobs, like the putting an end to the Trans-Pacific Partnership or cutting federal regulations on small businesses, this kind of stuff, very popular. I don't think he's gotten himself in trouble with a jobs-related measure yet. So the degree to which he can make everything he does about jobs and wages is really, really important. And he didn't do that with Obamacare. I went back and looked at that speech he gave in Louisville, and he never really presented,
the case.
Never at all, presented Obamacare, repealing Obamacare, as a jobs-related measure. Didn't even do much to present it as a cost-of-living measure, which it certainly is for people who are having to pay these huge deductibles. So he right now he's not framing some of the things he is doing in terms of the issue that got him elected.
Well, I think that could apply to a lot of things that are being done now. There's a lot of notice on the environment where we're going to rescind a bunch of environmental regulations in the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, regarding coal and other things at the EPA. And I think, again, if he wants to be a popular leader and in such a divided country when you only won, 47% of the vote, to me, part of what he needs to always be doing is taking his case to the people in a very specific way. I hate to use the word tutorial because that sounds really boring, but why not go and give a speech about the 5 most onerous environmental regulations and why they're hurting America and why their effect could be achieved by other measures that are much more, balanced with business interests. That would be helpful, because now what the left is going to do on the environmental stuff, they're going to brand him the big polluter. They're going to go to the young voters and say, see, this guy is a big polluter. He's with the businesses, because none of the groundwork has been laid. I know think tanks in Washington do it, but I think that when he speaks, people do listen.
You're exactly right. And, some of the things like that of that are done commonly in Washington, they haven't been doing. If you're going to roll out a new policy, you lay the groundwork for it. You invite journalists in and talk to them about it. You invite the activists, the people that they call stakeholders, in to talk about it. And then you tell the public about it over and over and over again. Now, these environmental regulations clearly have a jobs focus. I mean, Trump won by 42 points in West Virginia in the coal country, but he also won Ohio and Pennsylvania. I mean, this is the kind of stuff the people who supported Trump in 2016. This is what they voted for, and so you're absolutely right. It's totally predictable what the environmentalists are going to do about this, but Trump could, I think, counter so much of that by framing this effectively in the frame of jobs and the economy. The more he does that, the more he connects and reminds people why they voted for him.
And if he continues to lose ground on in his personal popularity, approval rating, which again, George Bush, when this was brought up to him in the second Bush term, he would always swat that away. Oh, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. He was doing the right thing. And it turned out it really did matter. They lost, of course, the House in 2006, and then they lost the Senate in 2008. They lost the presidency. Personal popularity ultimately does help you get your other policies across the finish line. So he has to remain popular. He has to be a popular president to accomplish big things.
Absolutely, and the president's job approval rating is a good indicator of a lot of things. I mean, if you're approaching a midterm election, it's a good indicator of how his party is going to do. If you're approaching a presidential election, the job approval rating of the president who's in office is a good predictor of what's going to happen. I mean, this is actually important, and Trump is at a very low point early in his presidency. George W. Bush got lower, but that was after the Iraq War turned into a disaster. So Trump's, I mean, this is a problem. He's not where John McCain used to say. John McCain, when his campaign fell apart, he says, I was down to blood relations and paid staff. That's the only people who supported me. Well, he's not there yet, but pushing jobs. I'm going to be a one-note guest today. Pushing jobs and wages is a way to get that approval.
This economy. Everything that they sell has to be economy related. Everything they push has to be related to jobs and wages. I completely agree with you. That brings me to the first son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is now going to head up a new effort to streamline government. He's also the point man to work with business and businesses' relationship with government. He has kind of a lot of jobs, doesn't he?
Well, that's in his break from bringing about peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's a little much, don't you think, for a 36-year-old? God bless him.
I don't get this. I do. I must say, when I heard about this new streamlining government thing, I don't know if you thought about it, but I thought about Al Gore and reinventing government in 1992 in the Clinton administration.
The Grace Commission, remember that? Yeah, back in the 80s.
Yes, and this was basically to give the vice president something to do, and they did it, and they did a big report, and they came out, and they had a White House ceremony to release this volume of findings and stuff, and that was it. And I kind of think that this is the same sort of thing, that the president would be much better served by just doing stuff and not sort of launching this big study. But it's the kind of thing that's harmless, I think. I don't think it does any harm, but I'm not sure it does that much good either.
Oh, I think that, again, it's all about the numbers. The economy starts growing, the GDP, wages, keep it going. They got good news from Ford today, more innovation in the United States. That's all going to be positive, which also brings me to the split that we've been writing about in Life's Debt, the trade split in the West Wing. We have a big meeting coming up with President Xi. For the life of me, I don't know why we're doing that meeting without the U.S. Trade Representative, Bob Lighthizer, yet in place. But because the Chinese aren't coming over to, just shoot the breeze. They want to get concessions on trade from Donald Trump. And Gary Cohn, who is the Council of Economic Advisors chief, Jared Kushner, Dina Powell, others, including an individual who actually helped write the TPP, is working in the West Wing right now. I don't understand that at all. And then on the other side, it's like a little academic. Peter Navarro has a tiny little office, Bannon and Steve Miller. How's that all going to play out?
I don't know how it's going to play out. I mean, first of all, this is not the first White House to have some deep divisions over trade or just over policy in general. And this is the kind of thing the president either settles it, picks a side, or he just tries to finesse it and kind of make it go away, and then that's not a recipe for success. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. It seems to me that the president's campaign stance was so clear on this that it's going to be hard for him to go with the Gary Cohn side on trade. It just seems hard for
He's amassing a lot of power, though, isn't he, in the West Wing right now?
Yeah, he is. But I mean, this is something. But yes, he is. But go back to this campaign. I mean, the president talked about this all the time, and at some point, somebody's going to remind him of what he said.
One would think.
Let me say one more thing about jobs and wages, though. We did have a lot of job recovery under Obama. Unemployment went from 10% in late 2009 to 4.7% today. But wages, people are making less than they did
1999
years ago. Mm-hmm. So if they have a job, they're not making as much money as they used to, and because there are not enough jobs, they really don't have a great hope of jumping to another job that pays more. I mean, this is huge. Wages it's absolutely fundamental. So, and that's what trade is about. I mean, everything is about. I'm really the one-note guest today.
Good. No, but this is music to my ears, Byron York. This is music to my ears. If he stays on jobs in the economy, it's the economy stupid still. After all these years, it's the economy stupid. And we did not have an economic recovery, a real recovery after the Great Recession. It was a flatlining recovery. It was not a big one. Byron York, loved your pieces. We'll link them all up on lauraingraham.com.